I'm in. I'll hit the drive. You finish it.
Yeah, the rest is fine. The rest of my game's great. My drives, they're almost there though. They're getting there. I mean, they've been pretty long for me. I mean, the last drives have been hitting that are good at 235, 240, 250.
But they're not straight. They're sideways.
Well, so yesterday I played 9 yesterday, and 5 of my 7 drives were good. So that's not bad.
There you go. Hey, Gail, long time no talk.
All right, so we'll get rolling in a minute here. I don't know if we have a few more people coming on, Jay.
Oh, there you go. I was down in Florida last week. You live down there, right?
You didn't call
camera?
me. I was waiting for you.
Aw, next time you'll be sorry.
I'm about 2 hours away from you.
Yeah, so I did a little video, just some drone stuff with your buddy.
Oh, did you? Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
guess
was fun.
I'm shooting up more videos next week. All right, let's go ahead and get rolling here. Just value everybody's time and stuff like that. So today's topic is, how or when do you scale your business? So everybody, you reach a certain point in your career, and you're not able to get to the next level. We always talk about leveling up your business, right? You're not able to get to the next level. And Gail, since you're probably the smartest one in the group here, I'll start with you.
Oh, great. I have to leave at 9:30 for my coaching call with Josh Barker. So
There you go.
okay.
So what are you doing? When did you realize you needed to start, even hire your first admin person? When did you realize you had to start your team?
Well, because I'm like very trained. Once you hit 40 deals, then that's what my coach had told me. So that's when I decided to hire my admin. She's actually still with me today. So,
Okay.
And she had absolutely no experience, but those are the best kinds because you kind of teach them from the ground up.
Yep.
And it's like, you have to delegate to elevate.
Delegate to elevate. I love that. So when was so you did that, and how hard was that to let go of the stuff that you were doing?
For me, it was easy because once I realized somebody could actually do it better than me, if she sucked, it would have been different. But because she was good right off the bat, and, I was just like, why? Just like, I don't want to paint my own house. I can, but why would I want to when somebody could do it in 3 days and take me a month? So it just, I read the book, The E-Myth. That was the best book I ever read. And
Okay.
once I read that, and they said, you cannot be everything. You can be the technician, the mechanic, and the entrepreneur. You can't do it all. So, and the one thing I will say that helped me in my business is I am coachable. So when I realized that, and I understand I've only been in this 8 years, right? So I came into the business thinking I know nothing. So everybody else has to be smarter. But, at the end of the day, I still feel like now that I've joined EXP with all these brainiacs around me, I'm like, I know nothing. You guys are so smart. I love it.
There are a lot of smart people. It's very funny.
Yeah.
So when you went from 40 deals a year, what were you able to do adding on an admin person?
Well, that was probably a year. Probably my 3rd year. So what I did was, instead of I never wanted to be that person to do 200 deals or 500 deals. I just wanted to raise my price point. Right. So by raising my price point, I had to raise my service, the level of my service. So for me, I don't want to be that guy, in life or on stage go, I did 500 deals. I'm on the Forbes list. That's not anything that is appealing to me. So basically just trying to surround myself with an army of just Navy SEALs. And it took me time because how they say slow to hire, quick to fire. And I've been very, very blessed that the people that are around me, like I just took a whole week off in St. Augustine and I didn't miss a beat. Of course, the market is kind of tanked here, but that helped. But I didn't feel like I constantly had to look at my phone. It was kind of a very, I'll never forget the first time, because it took me 5 years to even take a vacation. Once I got into real estate, 5 years where I couldn't go camping, and you have to understand, we love camping, great. And when my partner Val said, I got this, don't worry. I was like, no, this is like $1 million deal. It includes farm equipment and winery and all that kind of stuff. And she's like, I got this. And I'm not used to people coming through. I'm used to so many people failing me.
Right.
And that just for in my life, it's like people say they're going to do stuff and it doesn't happen. And I'll tell you when, and I'm actually having dinner with that lady tonight, the lady at the house that from 5 years ago. And it was just the most freeing thing. I'm like, oh my God, I can actually do something because I have such amazing people that I'm surrounded with. But, that all comes to a cost. So now instead of being that one agent that just gets their check and goes home, I split my check 5 ways, with the landlord, the admin, transaction. I split every deal I do also. So I have a co-listing agent or even my buyers. I don't ever do one by myself because I want to level up and I want to coach my team. That's really my aim. And by the way, I'm in that success coaching right now. It's pretty good. You guys got to check that out.
Yeah, well, excellent.
Yeah.
That's all great. That's great stuff. I will say, E-Myth Revisited changed my life dramatically.
100%.
I owned it was the first online dating service. I think you guys all know that. And I was a micromanager. I would literally be on the road 25 days a month, calling my assistant 6, 7, 8 times a day. What's going on? What are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? And then someone made me read that book, and I was like, and I am now a professional delegator.
Hey, Gail.
Great guy. Oh, ready to go ahead,
Yeah.
buddy.
I just had a question. Gail, so take us back to when you were gearing up to get to the 40. What was your, it sounds like your life obviously was busy, you couldn't take vacations,
Right.
but were you able to outsource anything at that point, or literally you were doing everything yourself? Like, because some of us, right, are listening, they're not there yet. They're getting up to that number. And for some, it could be 40, for some, it might be 20. But either way, what were the things that you were able to, or had to outsource, regardless if you had a full-time buyer's agent or listing agent, which it sounds like you didn't at that point?
Yeah, the only thing I outsourced, honestly, was transaction coordinating. That's it. I've had the same transaction coordinator from, the day that I started 8 years ago to right now. And she's also the type of gal that if I say, hey, I have buyers tomorrow, here's the 8 houses they want to see, go ahead. And so I paid her more. Most people are $350. I paid her $500. So she'll do buyer tours for me. And then I could just, tell her, hey, I need you to write an offer for me, because I'm here in my car. And, here's what I would transcribe it. So honestly, and, I thought that working till 11 o'clock every night was normal. I wake up, people see me out walking at 5:30 in the morning. They think I'm lost all the time, but that's just, I work on very little sleep. And I just wanted to, go in hard at a high level. And you have to understand I'm a prospector, right? And actually that's what I'm getting back to. We just ran our first prospecting contest. And we're trying to develop a culture of prospecting and fishing because as the market shifts. So I'm actually going back exactly to what I did on my first 5 years, which is kind of exciting. It was scary because, my phone just was ringing, but now it's, and when I say prospecting, I'm actually going into my own database and having those conversations, and they're long conversations, a lot of them. So, as far as outsourcing, I never really did staging. I do staging now that I'm in the luxury. And keep in mind, even though we say I'm a luxury agent, I'm not. I just happen to live in a place where the average crappy home is $1 million, right? So it's not like there's fabulous gates and I live this fabulous lifestyle. Sometimes I bring a toilet plunger with me to a listing and toilet paper. So, I'll do whatever it takes.
That's funny. That's awesome. All right, let's go to Brian, because I always put him last, and then he gets cut off and cries a little bit, and we don't want to cry. Brian, what do you? When did you realize you had to make a change? And yeah, go for it.
All right. Well, like Gail, I wanted to bump my average price range up too, and my goal was to get into the luxury market. And I did that. When I did that, I jumped onto a team, and I really, for the first time, got to see a high functioning team work. And I worked there 5 years. And what we did was we had a very balanced system. And one of the things that we did was we had every listing that the Rainmaker took. In this case, the Rainmaker would take a listing, and part of his presentation was he would bring his team back to the property before it hit the MLS to show us the property he just listed, and also to show us how to show the property, because a lot of them were in the luxury market and they don't have lock boxes. So the acronym was LAMA, listing agent must accompany, but the listing agent never wanted to be there, right? Because the listing agent was out doing listings. So the listing agent would tell the seller, hey, listen, I'm going to bring my team over, and then you're going to see my team throughout the week, the weekend, whatever, always showing the property if a listing agent must accompany. And usually that meant we showed it to another agent and their buyer, or we showed it to a buyer. When we did that, there was a percentage that was split between those buyers agents. And that was like my first team concept where I'm like, man, I like this, because if I don't sell the property, or if I'm not a part of the showing that sold the property, the money still was pooled between how big the team was. I think our biggest team was five showing agents. And so I always had income coming outside. It's like a little referral. It was nice, just passive income from the Rainmaker. So what I did was I took that experience. We did 100 transactions and 60 million in 1 year. I sold, a $700 or $7 million property. So we were doing really well, but I got recruited away, and I peaked as a realtor, you guys, in 2010, 2011. That's when I really peaked. And then I moved out of production and I moved into management and training. And so as an agent in 2005 for 6 years as a luxury agent, I walked out, I went out into a marketplace with a lower market, and I hired my first assistant. And my first assistant was hired, like Gail said. So I wish I could share my screen. I have this thing called the Agent Quick Start Guide, and it shows the 7 steps, or really 6 steps, of every producing real estate agent. Once you become a top producer, there's only 7 steps. We as top producers, we stay in steps 2 and steps 3. We're converting leads, we're on buyer consultations, we're on listing presentations, and we're balancing our buyer side with our seller side, and we're marketing and sales. And then we let our team take over. The team takes over when we open escrow. The team takes over during all that contingency period, and they do everything for you. So this step guide keeps me balanced, and I could share it with newer agents, and I'll see if I can put a link in this chat after I'm done speaking. But what I did was, when I hired her, what I learned was like Gail said, I found somebody who's really good at what I didn't like doing, right? I did the old Tom Ferry thing where you go green, yellow, red, very similar. We did the eMyth also. We did Rockefeller habits. We scaled our fortune builder investment business. I'll let Randy talk about that, because our CEO wrote the second half of the eMyth, which is Stan Merrill with Michael Goober, called the eMyth for Investors. So I come from that. And that girl I hired stayed with me 6 years, had 2 kids. I went through her marriage with her. I went through all her kids with her. And there were times when I would answer my own office phone, and I would be my client, and they'd say, hey, Brian, it's Joe. We're looking for Sarah. Is she there? They would ask for my assistant. They wouldn't even want to talk to me. She was so good at everything I had her doing that they knew that wasn't the person they needed to speak to, which was me, the Rainmaker at the time. I just had this team concept set up very well. So then let me transition into managing and owning a brokerage with Randy. I was hired to do a lot. And one of the things that I had to do was hire a lot of buyers agents and marketing people and system people for our company. The best ones we ever got, honestly, were interns. Interns are free. They're hustling. They're hustling because they got to be there for a certain amount of time. They got to go back to school. They got to get their job done. And they're hustling and we still have, I know for a fact, at some of our sister companies, interns who were there in 2012 and 13 that are employees of the company today. They were just that good. So consider what the job is you need. So if it's a straight out buyer's agent, obviously they need to be licensed. And then how you how I and how Randy, what we did with these buyer's agents is what we did was we made them a part of that team that became the buyer agent go-to for a listing, for everything, and got them really excited about pumping the production up, that they were in control of all of it. And my buyer's agents, all I would do is I'd convert leads, I'd get sign calls, I'd get internet calls, I do everything, I'd convert a lead. And then my first buyer's agent, 25% referral fee back to me, I'd give her the lead. I just wanted somebody to take my leads. It was okay. And then they would come to me and I would help them and I would coach them. And I like to teach people how to fish. I don't fish for them. So what I would do is I would get these buyer's agents, and then, you know, Berkshire Hathaway, I mentored 65 agents and I made a lot of money as a mentor doing that. But I walked out of there with a lot of concepts that I'm like, okay, these agents that are hungry are the best people to have on your team. And we would run an ad and we would find agents and they would speak really well in the interview, but you have to realize that once you give them a task, that task sometimes is really who you hired, and you find out quickly who's good or who's not. Interns, love them. I mean, I'm like, I can't speak enough about getting yourself an intern. And it might be, Cameron, just getting a social media like intern, like somebody who's just a beast on social media. There's your beast. You got him in the room with you. Yeah. If you're watching this, I'm talking about leverage.
Yeah,
leverage,
he's talking
leverage.
about you. And he was actually adjusting the camera here. And that's it. He's willing to hustle and he's busting his butt because he knows that he's learning and he's learning. And what you're saying is spot on. I love it. Keep going, you guys. This is
okay.
Great.
Well, the last thing I'm going to talk about is that once you become a good producing realtor, you're a top agent, you have a little team, you'll start to realize that for every 4 referrals, that equals 1 commission. And it's so much easier to hand off a referral, 4 of them, and let everybody do their job with those 4 referrals. And you end up with 1 good commission on deals that you don't want to do personally. So have your go-to referral agents that make you look good, that understand they're getting a gift, and then give them the extra. Because when they get the extra, they're going to give you the extra, and then they bring you back in the deal if you need to be in the deal. And I loved that production, but you know, running a brokerage is a completely different thing. And you know, that's where a lot of my stuff comes from and training comes from. So that's it.
Cool. Awesome. Great stuff. As always, you always have great stuff. So let's see where we're going to go. Let's go to my buddy Dennis, because he's always so serious and we want to see him smiling. He always smiles when he shares. Share away, Dennis.
So yeah, I mean, running a team's challenging. Let's start there, right? So look at Gail, big time. I've been running a team for 2 decades now. So, you know, you go through ups and downs, and you know what Gail said was spot on, right? You want to get a really, really good assistant that doesn't match your personality. That's number 1, right? If you're a D personality, don't get a D personality assistant, because you guys will just be butting heads the whole time. So use the disc profile. That's one suggestion. You know, and whoever on this call is on a team, it's not a bad place to be, honestly. And a lot of people have ambitions about, you know, I want to start my own team. It's not all what it's cut out to be. I know so many teams that are super unprofitable, number 1. So it's a fallacy that all these big teams are making a ton of money, because I know a lot of them are not. And we can all attest to that, right? Yes. So, and I know a lot of solo producers that are really megastars, and they have 1, 2, sometimes 3 assistants, and they just chug it out, and they just profit straight money to their bank. So keep that in mind. If you're on a good team right now and you're making money, it's not a bad place to be. You know, maybe consider buying investment properties, things of that nature, you know, to bolster your income, because running a team's not always fun and games. So, you know, I'll talk about some of the pitfalls. Pitfalls are, you know, when you get a top producer on your team, sometimes they end up leaving, right? They want to start their own team. So you might pump out referrals to them and leads for years and years, and then they end up leaving, and you can't track all that stuff afterwards. So that's one downside. You know, another downside is you're giving up half your income. Usually, if you run your team, if you do a 50-50 split, which is a typical team out there, you know, you're going to come to a point where you might be selling 40, 50 houses on your own. And then you end up getting let's say a buyer's agent or a listing agent, you end up giving half your income away. You can come to that little area where you're actually making less money than you did as a solo agent, a lot less money, right? So you kind of almost, some of these teams that have 3 to 5 agents, some of them are super unprofitable. And some of the teams that have 20 to 30, 40 agents, sometimes that's kind of that little, I don't know the exact sweet spot, Mitch, but I'm thinking around 15 agents. It's like anything under 15 kind of gets tricky. Above 15, Gail, you might be able to comment on that. You have a pretty large team. So, you just have to crunch your numbers, guys. So running a team's not all fun and games. Now, the good part about running a team is you could be on vacation and have a well-running team and still make money. And that's always a good feeling when you're on vacation and your phone rings and you find out, you sold 3 houses and you weren't even there. You don't even know who the people are. Now that's called leverage. So that's good. But
so good.
yeah, so there's a lot of there's a lot of good stuff about a team and there's a lot of tricky stuff about a team. So it's just not, so whoever's on this call, in other words, if you think about jumping on starting your own team, let's say, give it some consideration, maybe reach out to one of us, directly on the side, and maybe we can give you some guidance, because it's a lot of pitfalls to it. Let's leave it at that. It's not all fun and games. So
Yeah, and it's so funny because I talked to a broker the other day, and not broker, broker. So she runs her business as a team though, and a lot of brokers run their business as a team. She's got 15 agents, and I was like, so how's it going? And she's like, well, it's been amazing. And she goes, just needed to get a little more organized. She asked me some help on, some coaching on expanding and stuff like that. So that's what we're looking at. I said, well, let me analyze your numbers first. And I looked at her numbers, and then we looked at her 2021. We didn't look at 22. In 2021, she killed it. Her team lost $7,500. Just to go with what you're saying. So a lot of times the team leader's making money, but how much money did she put in? She lost $7,500 on her team of 15 agents. So let's go to Craig up in Chile, Pennsylvania. It's cold up there now, right?
Yeah, it's 85 today. There you go.
Brr.
Going back to the E-Myth, there's also a book that was written. I know there's the investment one that Brian talked about, but there's a guy by the name of Brad Korn, who's a friend of mine, wrote The Real Estate Agent E-Myth with Michael Gerber. Story with him is his wife was actually just somewhere in a car accident and then was in a coma for a year. And they tried to get her to survive, and she was literally almost brain dead in the hospital for a year before they decided it was time for her to pass away. And he literally went from 60 deals to 120 deals with his team, working 1 day a week, doing the systems of what E-Myth did. And Michael said, you need to write a book about that. So just as a little hint, this was written on a guy that would work 1 day a week for a whole year because he sat in the hospital with his wife. So I'm going to go a little different here in a conversation. There's a gentleman by the name of Alan Dom. If you've never heard about him, he's a mega agent around the country. In Philly, he's known as the Condo King. Was ultimately an elevator repairman in condos and started selling real estate and ended up owns half the city and things that worth about $1.5 billion. He's probably going to be the next mayor of Philadelphia. I got privileged to meet him the first month or two into my business. And I said to him, and again, he was charging about $10,000 then a day to go sit with him. But he was in my market. And I said to him, what do I do? How do I become successful? He says, show up in my office tomorrow morning or next Tuesday, whatever it was, at 6:30 in the morning. He goes, you're going to be with me all day. And all I had to do was write down everything he did, And at the end of the day, he said to me, all right, now, how many suits do you have? Because we were all wearing suits then. I said, I have one. He goes, good, go buy 4. He goes, do you have an assistant? And I said, no. He goes, then you are the assistant. He goes, I don't care if you get somebody 2 to 3 hours a day, a high school person, there are things that they could be doing. You're just sold cards, you're this cards and all that. These were people that we had to deal with, and fine. The world today, we're all blessed. You can get a VA for 15, 20 bucks an hour without unemployment, without this and all that, and just pay on your credit card and have the work done even while you're asleep. So to say that you can't have some of your dollar productive stuff done, that you shouldn't be touching your brochures, your flyers, your tweaking of this, your whatever it may be, is silly. Because you have VAs today. You don't need a physical body where you needed before. There are plenty of people, plenty of companies. I know there's a lot of people in here that have VAs. The point is that they're easier to get rid of if they're not matching, and they're easier to get if you've got to replace them. And if they're sick, somebody steps in for them. So to make the excuse you can't find somebody is silly. So my role was, I got an assistant the first 3 weeks and I started giving him stuff. In the first 3 weeks, I had no idea how to pay him. You know what my dad said, who was my broker, because I'm an SOB, he goes, that's great. I guess you have to. You got to pay for the suits you just bought and somebody who's working for you. So now go sell some houses. And it worked. So that's the story where I believe in an assistant. You should always have somebody doing something that isn't your highest dollar productivity, even day 1.
100%. Love it. Well, it's the difference between running a business or being a technician, right? Going back to what Gail said about E-Myth.
Again, what Dennis
well-
said, there's a lot of people doing a mega amount of business that are broke.
Right.
That are
Yeah,
broke.
it's all about
And
profitability.
go goes together. When your ego's there, man, oh man, it is bad news. It's not a matter of what you make and what you sell. It's what you make and what you keep. What are you invested in in yourself? For us that are in EXP, we're allowed to buy our stocks. We're allowed to create legacy. If you're not there, that's cool. Find a way to go make investments with an X amount of percentage of all your sales. At least 5 to 10% should be going into something else out of your sight, whether it's into our company or whether it's another company. Find a way to invest in yourself.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Good stuff. Randy, let's go to Randy.
All right, what's up, guys? I love this topic because, like Brian mentioned, like we were basically mentored. I mean, they're our partners, but I also look to them as our mentors. Dan Merrill, one of the owners of Fortune Builders, and Conrad and Paul. When I was an intern for them, so this is speaking to some of you that are struggling maybe with getting business, right? When I wanted to get into real estate and learn how to flip homes, I went to the best, right? And I said, hey, I'll work for you for free. I just want to learn, right? And I literally did that for 6 months in 2006, slept on my buddy Conrad's, who's one of the owners of Fortune Builders' couch, just so I could soak in what they're doing, because to me, that was more valuable than anything else. And then from there, so many doors opened up, right? Where then I became a partner with them in a flipping company. Then I became a partner with them in the brokerage that I ran with Brian, right? So I guess the message I want to start with is, if you're in a place where you're like, oh man, like I don't know where my next deal is going to come from, and you're struggling and you're stressed out, honestly consider looking for the top producer that is actually doing it very well. They're able to produce a lot of opportunities, but they are looking for help. And they also don't want to, maybe spend a ton of money on that help yet, right? They're in that spot, like we talked about, where a lot of producers, they might seem like they're making a lot of money. That doesn't mean that they are. So consider approaching them and saying like, hey, how can I help you? What can I do for you that I can take off your plate so your business can go and skyrocket even further, so we can keep you in your highest, in the highest operating time frame, whatever you do well, let's keep you there. And then let me take on the other things that free up your time. And if you take that approach, I'm telling you, opportunities are going to be coming your way left and right, right? That doesn't mean you have to work for free either, right? But some of you might want to do that, right? And it could be a temporary thing to prove yourself, right? And that's the approach I took. Let me prove myself, and then my doors will open, and I'll actually have choices, right? So consider doing that. Maybe joining a team like Dennis said and others that are at a high level, but don't go in there with your chest puffed up and be like, I want 50% of the leads you're going to give me, and like that. No, like that's not going to work, right? Just start from the bottom, work your way up, and let your actions speak for themselves, right? And where the producer is going to feel guilty and they are going to want to give you a raise or start paying you. Like in our instance, like Brian said, we literally, just so you guys know, when we built our investing company on the West Coast and we started from scratch, we moved from East Coast to the West Coast, and we're like, all right, let's get this thing going again. We hired 3 interns from college, paid them $0. Why would they do that? They wanted to be just around us. They wanted to soak in what we know and how we do it. Those guys became such rock stars. We felt guilty not paying them later, like because they made us so much money. So we started paying them, right? And if you find the right people, I'm telling you, number one, if you're the one that's hiring interns or these people that you're going to want to pay them more. But if you're on the other side, honestly, just come humble, come hungry, and don't lead with money questions when you're looking to join a team, right? Lead with what can I take off your plate? Ask them that. What is it that you're like, man, I can't wait. I wish I can just take this off my plate. What is that? What is that thing, right? So that's something that I really want to speak towards, right? Because the way I got into the business is I was basically running businesses and sometimes multiple at once. So I had to scale at all times. And one thing I would tell you is when you are potentially hiring your first assistant, it could be the intern turned assistant / paid assistant to then becoming a buyer's agent. That's usually what I find is the progression with producers. When I was running a brokerage, I was forced to have someone that was going to help me with my leads because I didn't want to say no to my sphere that's coming to me. Hey, Randy, can you sell my home? But I have no time to do it myself because I'm busy running a couple businesses. So I didn't want to be the guy, right? Going to the listing appointment, going to the appraisal, going to the inspection. My goal was always that if I can do most of my work from my home or my office, that's what I want to achieve. And my goal always too is not to have my phone ring, but have my assistant's phone ring. How can I achieve that the fastest, right? And it's not going to happen overnight because you're not going to trust your intern / assistant with taking calls and negotiating on your behalf. Like that's not going to happen right away. That will require some training. And one thing I can tell you that has helped me in training interns, assistants in both businesses, the investing business that I ran and now the realtor business, is Ringcentral was a game changer. So Ringcentral, which actually we get, I think, a phone number, I know we get a phone number at EXP. I don't know if many agents utilize that, but if you actually have a Ringcentral number, what I liked about it is that it automatically records your calls if you turn that setting on. And it doesn't have the weird thing like on the beginning, like, by the way, this phone call is going to be recorded for training purposes. It doesn't have that, right? Which is awesome. So all my calls were always recorded. So then when I was trying to take my assistant from not just being the runner, right, for me and going and putting in lock boxes and ordering signs and going to inspection, when I wanted to get my assistant to the next level, which is negotiating, right? That's hard to do where I'm like, man, I wish she was on the conference call every time I make a call to a listing agent that I'm negotiating with or vice versa. That's silly. That's so hard to do. Like, wait, hold on, listing agent. Hold on. Let me three-way my assistant and so she can learn. It's like, it's awkward. You're not going to do that. Right. It might work once or twice, but it's not going to, usually those things happen on the fly. Right. So instead I would tell my assistant, look, the number that I use for my realtor business is a specific number. I only use it for my realtor business. That's not my personal cell phone. And it's a Ringcentral number. All the calls get recorded. All I want you to do every week, go through my Ringcentral account, log into my account, and pick any call you want. And I would guarantee you're going to start learning how I speak and how I communicate to the other agents. And you're going to understand my style of negotiating. And then you're going to start picking up those terms. And then I'm going to start allowing you to make some of those phone calls. And then I'm going to step you into negotiating, right? That's how I outsource literally training of negotiating, right? So that's a huge tip for you guys. If you get anything out of this, think about that, right? Outsource your own training. And the only way I found to be the most efficient is recorded calls, right? Ringcentral is the app I use to this day, right? Now, the way I started with my assistant, I paid her first $500 per transaction. And this is on top of my transaction coordinator, right? Because a transaction coordinator is not going to run to the property, put a lockbox for me. Maybe Gail's would, right? But most won't, right? So first I had her be kind of like my runner, right? Then I added more things to the list and I gave her $1,000. Then I said, all right, great. Now I have some trust in you. I was like, I want you to start showing properties right, to buyers, right? Because that's the most time consuming things for us realtors is showing the actual properties. But at the same time, it's also the easiest thing that we can train someone on. So I said, hey, you go and start showing properties to some of my referral buyers, and we'll frame you correctly where, hey, Randy is the negotiator, he's the strategist. I'll bring you into my meetings with my clients, and then we're gonna set the expectations that you, Jessica is her name, you're going to do the fun job with with them, which is go show properties, right? So everybody understood what role everyone's playing. And when I was comfortable doing that, then I started paying my assistant / realtor 25% of that deal, right? So she was getting 25% of the deal. Now she got it up, raised from 1,000 to 25% if she started working with my buyers, right? And then I told her, I was like, look, the moment I can start feeling where I can release all the negotiations to you, we'll become 50-50 partners. And we'll get there, right? But I need you to listen to my trainings, like I told you guys earlier. So little by little, I kept inching the 25% up to 30%, 40%. Now we are a 50-50 split. Brian knows her. She's just a blessing to me. Every client, the listing side, the buyer side, we do everything 50-50. My phone never rings anymore with client calls or agent calls. Everyone calls Jessica. That's always my goal. Whenever I'm scaling a company, I'm like, how do I get my phone not to ring? Because that's a reactive position that I never like to be in. When I'm just in reactive mode, I can't focus on growing my business, right? Because you're just in your business constantly. So if you can approach it from that standpoint, like, okay, how can I get my phone not to ring? It's going to require help, but it's not going to happen overnight. And one book I'm reading now, and I will suggest this to you guys, is the Who Not How by Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Who Not How, which
That's
basically
great, yeah.
it's reframing whenever you're stuck somewhere. It's reframing the way you think about it and saying to yourself, okay, it's not how can I do this? It's who can do this for me? Who can I find that can do this for me? And if you go in that mindset with everything you do in life, and I'm not saying you're going to outsource everything in your life right away, but you could eventually literally outsource majority of it, where you could be like Mitch on the golf course every day, right?
Every day.
Because he approached his life, I can guarantee you, over the last few years with this concept, he doesn't even realize it, but it's happened. So I'll end on this. Who Not How, awesome book. Good luck if you're on the side of hiring, but if you're on the other side, lean in, be humble, and offer help, and just watch the blessing coming your way.
Awesome. I love that stuff. Yeah, I've lived that life, Randy, for many, many years. Because I know I'm only good at a couple of things, and like I can play guitar, but my granddaughter sings because I can't sing. Cam, let's go to you, buddy.
Hey guys, yeah, that was a good acronym there for not being able to sing. And I kind of want to start with that, is that, depending on what you're good at, make a list. Take a sheet and go down the center of it, things that you do like and things you don't like. And the things that you do like, lean in on those. And the things you don't like, obviously try to find someone or try to delegate to somebody else. I know a lot of people on the call today aren't quite in the position to become team leaders, right? A lot of people are newer agents or they're learning, and that's what we're here to teach. But it's okay to be on a team. It's not, if you're not running a team and you're not growing real quickly, but you're still making good money, that's the goal. It's always trying at the end of the day of what you're earning. And if the team helps you earn, stick with the team. At the same time, what the teams allow us to do is leverage our time. So we can then delegate the things we don't like, and we can spend more time on the things we do like, right? And even if that's not lead gen, or it's not prospecting, or whatever it may be, you can start up tons and tons of different businesses inside your real estate business with that free time that you're able to open up, obviously by having an assistant or a virtual assistant or an ISA or whatever it may be. I think the number that I have found for myself was 30 deals per year. After that, I had to have someone be able to handle the paperwork duties, right? We started off with a virtual assistant and that worked fine. But we never grew to having a full office like a lot of you guys. But again, I've set it up a little bit differently where I'm trying to set up satellite offices around the country rather than having a giant local team. So we're all doing it a little bit differently, but by leveraging and delegating your time, you can try to set up different types of strategies and see what works and what doesn't. Got a few things here. Obviously, if you're on a new team and you're spending your time doing that, here's one thing. If you are bringing agents or people onto your team that are going to be interns or assistants, don't expect them to be you. I've had that really a challenge lately is like, I want them to be just like me. And that doesn't work. You have to have people that are opposite of you that can fill in those voids, because if they're just like me, they're not going to want to do the things that I, don't want to do. Right. We have to find people that can complement our negatives or our pitfalls. And then we can be the person to do the things that we're really good at. So don't make sure that they're just like you. And if they are struggling or if they have a problem, make sure you're encouraging them. You got to remember, especially for interns or younger people, and I'm the same way, is that I can get really hard on myself. But we have to say positive minded. You have to say, you want them to show up. You want them to put in the extra work. Who was it? I think it was it Dennis or was it, I don't remember. Someone was saying that, the interns are the ones that grind for you. It might've been Randy, but they're the ones putting in that extra work. But if they get discouraged and you're hard on them and you're trying to make them like you, when we've been in this business 20 years, we have the ability to go up and down. They're interns, they're new. So we have to keep them motivated, keep them growing, and keep them functioning at the highest level they can do, because that's why they're here. I don't have much to say about this, you guys, other than really delegate the things that you don't like and make sure that you are leaning in on the things you do like. If you're a newer agent, don't feel like you have to start a team. If the time is right and you obviously are so busy that you need assistance and you need ISAs, you will know that. And we're all here to help you kind of grow and start that. But don't feel like if you're not there yet that you need to start hiring team members and you need to start doing this thing. Because obviously, like I believe someone was saying in the comments, they feel like they don't have any work for their assistant. And that's something, obviously, if you feel like you don't have any work for your assistant, you start doing busy work trying to generate work for your assistant rather than doing the money-making activities of, converting leads, talking to people, and selling homes. So keep that in mind. Like I said, I don't have a ton to offer. Everyone else kind of went over it, but definitely don't try to make them just like you. Let them be themselves, encourage, support, and you'll be amazed at how people blossom in front of you. And then you can obviously groom them to being you in the future. I think, Randy, you were saying that, where they can become your assistant, become your buyer's agent, become a local team lead, so forth and so forth. And that's kind of my goal with my satellite teams, is I really am trying to find team leaders that I can encourage in that way. And it's working really well. So I think that's just another avenue to think about. It doesn't always have to be a local team. So.
All right. Yeah, let's get to Matt Batty. Matt, you were there? I know you're driving. He may not be there. All right, well, I'll get Matt if he comes back on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you go, Matt. So so go ahead and give your 16 cents on this.
Well, listen to these conversations and what everyone's saying, which are all really great points. I remember when I was literally a brand new agent and I was in an office of about 300 agents here in San Diego, and literally I was brand new. And I was the first person, if you can imagine, in that office, and this was 1999, I was the first person in that office to hire an assistant. And everybody looked at me like I was like, it was such a revolutionary idea. But at the time, I really thought that, just like Cameron was saying, you want to focus on the things you're good at and the things, the rainmaker activities. And what I say, and I'm sure I heard it from someone or read it somewhere, that is if you don't have an assistant, you are an assistant. So, and back then, I don't even know that there were virtual assistants. So I hired a full-time employee, and which is kind of expensive. The beauty now is that, virtual assistants we all know about virtual assistants. There's a handful, at least more than a handful of websites that you can hire them on. There are literally virtual assistant companies that literally specialize in helping real estate, in the real estate field. And so anything that you need to help your business, you can hire a virtual assistant for. And I think on average, the going rate, because a lot of them are overseas in places that are a lot cheaper than the States. So you can hire them for about $6 an hour. You don't have to pay payroll tax. You don't have to, all the different things you'd have to pay when you have a full-time employee in the United States. So I think that's the best way to grow your business, is with a virtual assistant. And for the people on the call who are with EXP, I know not everyone is, but for the people who are, the other amazing thing about what you can do is, you can build a team that's not immediately around you, right? You can build them in other markets, really anywhere in the world. And to me, that's the biggest opportunity right now that I see, is that we've got 23 or 24 other countries that we can all grow with in. And I'm always amazed when I meet people at events who say, I've got people in 6 different countries and all 50 states and so forth. That was always the thing that that was really used to frustrate me, was that, boy, I'm restricted to just being an agent in San Diego or even in California. And for a while, I opened up an office out in Palm Springs, and I opened up an office up in Orange County. But it is difficult to do that because you can't be everywhere at once, right? So to me, that's the biggest way that people on this call who are with EXP can grow, is by, attracting agents anywhere in the world. So, but I think for people that aren't with EXP, the VA thing is really huge. We're looking into hiring VAs right now to edit videos and optimize videos and so forth. And they're, it's super involved. And so for me to learn how to do that on my own, and then to have the time to do it on my own, it's just not realistic, right? So I think virtual assistants, for anybody on the call that wants to maximize their time, is something that everybody should really, really look at and take advantage of.
Cool. Yeah, and I agree. So I'm gonna give you my 47 cents. So one thing I learned, again, going back to the E-Myth book, is, do not be a technician, be a business person, and don't do things that you don't like doing or don't have the time to do. So one of the things I coined this a while back is, you should, and this is not relevant in today's market because it's not $10 anymore, it's $15, but you should not be doing $10 an hour jobs. How do you value yourself? So when I was selling houses, and my rate has gone up a lot more since then, but when I was selling houses, I wanted to make a minimum of $250 an hour. Right? That was my most important thing. And so if I'm inputting a listing into the MLS, I'm doing a $10 an hour job. I'm not making $250 an hour. So what happened with me, I did 36 homes my first year, pretty easy by myself. I did 50 my second year. And that's when I realized, for me to get to the next level, I literally had to hire someone in that, to get to 80, which was my goal. And I did. I hit 80 my next year by hiring an assistant. I'm a little different than hiring on the thought process here. I personally I have VAs for some of my stuff that we do here, but I look for my assistants when I was just starting out. I didn't want a VA. I wanted a licensed person that was either part-time with me or full-time. I hired full-time because I could have, I was doing really well. But even a part-time, because of a couple of reasons. One, you can pay them differently. You can pay them a percentage. You can pay them a smaller base and a percentage of sales. So it gives them some motivation, right? Which is how I did mine. I paid back then, and we're talking 2003 or something like that. I paid $10 an hour plus 10% commission of every deal. And so it was a good paycheck for them. They really, it was a really good paycheck for them. So that's how I did that. The other reason why I like license is because they could do the stuff that I didn't have time to do. There's stuff that comes up in life. Like if I'm, I was, selling a lot of homes. So 80 homes is, more than one a week, right? 1.5 a week. So basically I couldn't always show everybody. So sometimes I had to have my assistant go out there and show property for me, because opening up the doors is easy. And then fast forward a little bit, I brought on Pat, who's with me now 17 years later. And, she came into the company as an admin person, then became my office manager. And this is how your admin person can progress. Became my office manager for many, many years. And now she's the general manager of my organization and my business partner. And any deals we do together now, we just split. She gets deals, I get deals, we split them. And we hire a transaction coordinator. And that's the other thing. You should definitely be paying a transaction coordinator for every deal. You should not be doing transactions coordination yourself. Again, $10 an hour job. And again, I would hire someone local personally so they understand the market, so they can talk to your customers. Nothing wrong with VAs. I have them for other stuff, video editing and stuff like that. But for me, for a really good, having a really good local person that can grow with you and be with you, like my, Pat. Oh, we got a fire alarm going off my office here. So hopefully I'm not going to die. But I think having someone that can grow you with you for your business is really powerful. So my biggest thing to say is don't be cheap. If you're going to run a business, run a business. Now, if you're on a team, by the way, learn from your team. There's nothing wrong with being on a team. I still have team members, and I love them and I treat them well and I help them, and they don't want to get to another level, which is awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're thinking about scaling at some point, which is what this call is all about, is that noise bothering you guys? Can you hear it as much as I can hear it? No? Okay. If you're really looking to scale your business, you really need to bring on somebody because you can't do all of it, right? And the only other thing I would say, all of us on this call here have built teams. And all of us do this every single week to contribute to you, regardless of what company you're with. We don't care, right? All we care about is helping people. That's where we are in our life. We're very blessed. All of us have been very, very successful in this business. We're very blessed. So if you have questions about that on an individual basis, just reach out to us and all of us will help. I did see a quote there about your VA being trained. A good VA company has already trained their companies. Like I use a company called Ribak Global. Their VAs are already trained. They know how to do transactions. They know how to do most systems. Like I know the one we use knows how to do SkySlope and KV Core. So, there's a lot of VA companies out there. Now I'll pay a little more because I know you can get them for $6 an hour, $7 an hour. Other places I pay $10 an hour. And I only buy $20 hours a week for my VA. So I think that's all I got. I mean, we got 7 more minutes here. If anybody has any questions about anything.
Brian has something, and then I got one thing I'll add, but go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, Mitch, I just wanted to add to that. So there's a lot of agents. I think there's close to 60 people on here. One of the successes that we had right out of the gate with all of our agents was we took the pressure off of them and gave them confidence to do one skill set. And that skill set was to just convert an appointment. So if you're out in the world and you're a buyer's agent or you're just a real estate agent looking to find your niche, one of the things that's really hard to do is build confidence in presentations if you don't have anything to sell or do. So what we did was we had agents that had nothing going on other than maybe open houses, door knocking, social media, networking, going to bars, just finding people to talk to about real estate. But the goal was for them was to just set an appointment for a buyer consultation. And then I would come in and I would sit in a conference room with them, with this person, and we'd do a buyer consultation. We'd have a lender there. We'd have the lender take over. We would leave the room, myself and the agent who set the appointment. We would sit outside and let it be a very private, intimate, 15, 20-minute conversation, come back in. And then my goal was to say, hey, listen to this person, when you're ready, you may not be ready tonight, but when you're ready, you and Sharon, I had this girl, Sharon, a bartender who just kept setting appointments, but she had no skill set. And I would just say, you and Sharon have all the fun. You guys get to go out into the marketplace and look at houses together. And I'm going to be your contract management guy. You're going to come back in here and I'm going to get your offer accepted. That's my role for Sharon, but Sharon is your agent. Sharon is going to be the one showing you properties. You guys are going to meet up. She built, after her 3rd buyer consultation, this girl, bartender, left the bartending business, closed 6 transactions at the end of her 1st year, but struggled for 6 months. The next year, she closed 17 deals. She got her first listing out of that 17. And to this day, she's, she moved away, she got married, she lives in Hawaii, but she owns a brokerage and she was a rock star. I have story after story after story doing that. If you're a hungry agent, go to that top producer like we heard from here and just say, hey, listen, if I set an appointment with anybody to come in, would you mind coming in and sitting and being part of my team? and do the presentation with that person so you could set me up for success to just be their agent to go out and look at properties. Could we start there? That would be a great place to start.
Yeah, and offer to split that.
Just one thing, Benny, for you. I just want to make a differentiation. So there are two different things, right? There's buyer agents and then there's assistants. So, I really stress on, because I find most agents, before they can really bring on buyer agents, they need an assistant more generally. And because they're doing those $10 an hour jobs. And then the next phase is the buyer agent. Again, which is why you can make an assistant / buyer agent to accomplish both goals.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
so
Randy.
Mitch, on that, I think one way of doing is hiring an assistant. I think a lot of agents are like afraid, like, oh, if I hire an assistant and they're licensed, they're gonna want to be a realtor. Well, who cares? Like, if that's their goal, like, support the goal, right? So I actually leaned into it, and I actually took my assistant through that. And as she watched my agents making money, she's like, maybe I would do that. I just don't want to go hunt for leads. I'm like, okay, well, if I give you the leads and my clients, and we just partner 50-50 eventually. And I literally took my assistant and I groomed her to be my realtor. But then guess what happens? Then when she gets to the point where she's too busy, like I was, and I needed her, guess who's going to train the next assistant? Not Randy. It's her that's going to train the assistant, which is another thing that gets a lot of agents all in this bottleneck, because they're like, I don't know, I can't train new people all the time. I have all this turnover. I honestly don't remember the last time I trained someone, because if you approach this correctly, the person, even if they're moving on to the next thing in their whatever dream job, if it's not within your company, because maybe you don't have that position available anymore, and they move on, I don't mind. All I tell my people is like, look, all I ask is that you train your replacement. That's it. And I don't remember the last time I trained someone. So I think it's BS when people get all hung up on that. Like, oh, I don't want to train someone that wants to become a realtor. I'm like, guys, forget it. Like, if they're ambitious to become a realtor, great, take them there. But just set the vision and tell them like, look, great. And then when we need an assistant, you're going to train them. So that means you're going to have help. How awesome is that? So until we get there, everything you do for me, you need to write it down in Trello, Asana, whatever you guys use to organize yourself. Have that assistant create the process for you. So then it's easy to outsource, so that person can then train the next, right? And I'll leave you with this. We have 1 minute. If you're thinking about how to get interns, every single college now, I would guarantee you, has a real estate major or an entrepreneur major. What I would do if I was you guys, I would reach out if you need help, right? And free help in most cases, reach out to the directors of that program. Ask them if there's any opportunities where you can bless some of their students that are in those clubs, and maybe even consider speaking to those clubs. That's what I did. I used to go out to those clubs and I spoke about investing, right? And they were intrigued by flipping and all that, right? Well, guess what? Some of them will be intrigued about how to get into being a realtor, right? So I put myself out there, I started speaking, and then I had my choice of interns, because they then had to basically apply to be working with me, because I created leverage, right? And the desire. So that's one way. Another way, you also at the same time can reach out to the director of the internship department at each college, right? So if you don't want to go and speak, then at least create relationships with the directors of the clubs and the director of all internships. And sometimes the easiest way to get in on the clubs and build a relationship is through students currently in that college. That's how I got in. I knew someone that basically was going to SDSU. I said, hey, can you get me into the club? Introduce me to the club president, which is a student. The club president is always a student. And I build rapport with him, like, hey, what do you guys need? You want me to speak on a topic? Like, yeah, great, that would be cool. We always, because they also need speakers for those clubs. They bring in speakers. So offer that as a free service, like, hey, I'll come and speak to you guys about real estate. What do you guys want to talk about? Right? Anyway, so I'll leave you on that. There's plenty of help out there. There's eager people willing and wanting to work with you. If you're building a team, and if you're on the other side, you should be the one willing and reach out to other high level, top producing people, because believe me, as you heard on this call, it doesn't always look, the behind the scenes, it's not what it looks like on the outside, right?
Right.
They need help. We need you.
Right. Yeah. So awesome stuff, Randy. And I'm going to end it on this because never lead with scarcity. Lead with abundance, right? And contribution and gratitude, because so many people lead with scarcity. My first assistant there, I said I paid $10 an hour and 10%. She became one of the top realtors in the county. And I love that. Every time I see her being successful, I get a little chill down my leg because I just think it's really, really cool. And I'll
Hey,
leave you
Mitch.
one more thing is that everybody leaves, right? So I learned this the hard way over years. I used to get very emotional, very upset when people would leave my company. But here's the reality. Everybody leaves. You either fire them, they quit, they die, or they retire. One of those 4 things is going to happen. So don't take it as a personal thing. When people leave you, they leave because of either leadership or they leave because they think it's better for their family to go to the next level. You can't fight that. Brian, you have one more thing you want to say before we close it up?
Yeah, I'm seeing in the comments that the link I shared is an opening to for some reason. So if you want a PDF version of that Agent Quick Start guide, just email me. I'll put my email in there, brianyarbor@gmail.com, and I'll send it out.
Everybody see that? Brian with the Y, yarbor@gmail.com. All right, guys, thanks. I had a suggestion about doing a thing on coaching next week. So maybe we'll next week we'll talk about, how has coaching affected your business? Like we've all used coaches at one point in our life, and I know what it's done for me. All right, guys, have a great week. Dennis, I'll see you in the golf course tomorrow, right? Bye, everybody.
See you guys out there.
To you guys. That was
Yeah.
really good. Contribution. That's, I think, the biggest thing that someone, come from contribution. If you do that, the doors open. If you try to be
Always.
selfish, if you
Yeah.
try to be selfish and you try to do it, it's like nothing works. And then it's like, here, this is what I'm doing. I'm just showing it to you guys, and it all just falls into place. So I love that.
Scarcity mentality. Yep. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you.
Cheers.
I can't leave. It won't let me leave.